I'm with a man who's considered a maverick in India, especially in the fintech space, and he is in the process of bringing out the EBIX Cash IPO. Mr. Robin Raina, thank you so much for speaking to the TV9 network, and it's a very important day when we're having this conversation. The budget has just been presented by India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Your initial thoughts, if I were to ask you to rate the budget on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate it? And then we'll get into your thoughts on the budget.
I'd rate it a 7.
You did it a 7. So that's Robin Raina's rating for the budget, 7 on 10. Tell us why exactly is it 7 on 10?
Well, it's an above average budget, but it falls, I think there's a lot of weaknesses in my mind, areas that it should have addressed that it doesn't address. And I like the facts that it focuses on infrastructure, it focuses on digital currency kind of aspects, focuses on water for all. I think infrastructure development is key. So those are the positives from my perspective. And but then I feel there should have been more specifics in the budget in terms of reviving industry, focus on manufacturing, focus on exports. I feel some of that is missing.
Some of that is missing, but clearly the screaming headline from this particular budget has been the digital rupee and the legitimacy that cryptocurrency has been given with this particular budget. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, that's a very positive development. So I got to give credit to Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman and the Modi administration for this. They have brought digitization to the fore, right? If you look at it, even before this, the concept of RuPay, the fact that a RuPay today can challenge the hegemony of a Visa or a Master was unheard of, right?
Absolutely.
And so having said that, the kind of UPI transactions we do in India aren't even happening in the US today, the speed at which they happen. So I got to give them credit. So I think there's a recognition that there's digital currency is here to stay. I think there's not much detail in this budget in terms of what exactly do they mean. There's obviously there's the fact that there's agreement in taxing virtual assets at 30%, for example. That's a positive development that they've recognized virtual currency exists. I'm not sure that the government is agreeing to the use of virtual currency, for example, for international means as a currency for cross-border currency. I don't think the government of India will agree to it. But in my mind, those are all positive moves. The idea of building a digital rupee, for example, launching a digital rupee, I think is a phenomenal move to further take India into a leadership position in the digital era.
All right. One quick thing before we get into other macro things that we can discuss about the budget is the fact that the income tax slab has not changed. They've kept it exactly the same. Any thoughts on that? Considering so many people were interested, were hoping that, considering we're coming out of a recession, pandemic-induced recession, consumer spending has to get a boost, some incentives for the salaried class.
Look, I personally feel that that government has already done enough, in my view, on the individual taxation front. I don't know whether continually providing further sops is going to help in terms of revival of economy.
Correct.
I do, however, feel that on the corporate side, there has to be a more recognition for export-oriented corporates. For example, if we want money to gravitate into India from China, one of the ways to do that is to recognize the fact that to say, if you're going to be in a manufacturing sector, we'll at least give you land at a subsidized rate in some place, but then more than that, giving them tax subsidies, saying as long as you're focused on export, we will give you some tax subsidies. In my mind, those kind of things should have happened. In this budget, I, for example, noticed the idea of that SEZ regime is going to now be revived a little bit. It's going to be changed. It's going to be replaced by a new legislation. I candidly don't know what that means. What does it mean? Is it a positive? Are we going to see further tax subsidies?
We need more clarity on that.
We need more clarity on that.
Fair enough. But what has been done is that the tax holiday for startups has been extended till 2024. There is also a fund being set up to promote agricultural startups, with NABARD being the nodal agency for setting up that fund and distributing those funds. And these are definitely good measures, especially as far as Startup India is concerned.
Well, look, I find it's a positive step. But in the present day India, most startups don't want to make money. So they don't have any issues of, of taxation, because all of them think that valuation comes from losing money and from organic growth just for the sake of growth. So I don't know whether that is a major step. I think it's a positive step to have taxation, all these exemptions for startups. I think those are positive, but I would rather see the government focus on the larger industry. Look, there are factors like travel industry has been decimated. Foreign exchange industry has been decimated in India, meaning money remittance industry has been decimated. Education has been decimated. I would have liked to see more in those areas, because it's not going to happen overnight. The travel industry is going to be back, right? You have to come up with some new means to revive the travel industry, do something for those travel employees out there who have suffered for the last many years, for the travel corporates, give some subsidies, allow people to bring back their travel business. So in my mind, there were certain things that could have been done for the travel industry or for any of these COVID affected areas. I think we could either be very pleased with, we have an 8 to 8.5% kind of a growth rate.
Exactly.
I am not one of those who's very pleased with that. I feel that on one side, 8.5 is not a bad rate, but it's a relative rate.
Yeah.
It's relative.
It's actually
to where
brought down
we
from
have
9.2 by our own
Correct.
estimates.
So I would have liked to see more than 9%, at least in terms of growth rate.
Correct.
At the same time, I think there should have been more steps, in my view, to take this, to get the growth rate to be getting closer to double digits.
Right. All right. Got the point. But Robin, I've always had this thought about budget. Budget at the end of the day is a document making exercise. I think sometimes too much pressure gets put on this thing called as a budget, because budget is a document making exercise. It's based on estimates. It's based on the findings of the economic survey that was presented the day before the budget. It's this is what you can do at the outset. From that perspective, do you think, and the context in which this budget is coming in, nobody predicted a third wave. I mean, we all thought it's not going to end with the second wave, but the third wave, the way suddenly it came and quickly it spread, and the kind of further disruptions it caused. Coming out of all of that, in the budget, how much could have the finance minister done, and based on that, how well do you think she's done?
Look, first of all, I'll tell you, I'm a supporter of the financial administration of Mr. Modi. I actually feel that they have been through the most trying times, and they've done well overall. I would give them a high rating overall over the last 5 years, or in terms of how they have handled the economy. At the same time, I expected more from Mrs. Sitaraman in this budget. There's not been as much focus on reviving industry that got impacted by COVID. There is some great stuff there's some good stuff in the budget, like more focus on reduction of deficit. Taking the deficit down to 6.4% and then down to 4.5 by 25-26.
Correct.
To me, those are great steps to to provide affordable housing. I am one of those who believes that trickle down economics never works. I am one of those who always believes that if you really want to make an impact, and you need to impact the underprivileged at the lowest level directly, right? And the 48,000 crores being given for affordable housing is a fantastic step. Providing water, recognizing that everybody doesn't have water in India still.
Yeah.
Putting in money for tap water in people's homes is a fantastic idea. The kind of outlay. More infrastructure is key for India's future, right?
Correct.
Putting in the recognition of putting in these 7 vehicles of growth, as she called it, whether it is railways or trains or buses or mass transport or ports and waterways and all that. I think these are fantastic steps. At the same time, while I recognize all of these, I feel that in terms of specificity, the budget could have done, in my view, a bit more in terms of recognizing some of the industries that have been decimated and trying to revive them.
So you're saying that the delta between a 7 on 10 budget and the 10 on 10 budget is the fact that it is in the right direction, but it could have clearly done little more and given more specifics in the budget. But going forward, considering the way the economy is, and right now it's a very hopeful economy across the world. We're like, okay, we're done with the third wave too. we're looking at a complete reopen of everything to back to the way it was, and hopefully by the end of the year we're back to where we were before the pandemic began. At this stage, what do you think India needs to do when it comes to economic policy making? Because handling the pandemic is one thing, and handling the impact of the pandemic on the economy is another thing. India has done fantastically well when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. How would you rate the way India dealt with the economic impact of the pandemic, and what do you think needs to be done at this stage?
Look, your question is by itself gives you an answer in the sense that I think the government did a fantastic job of handling the pandemic. I give them very high marks on that. But the effects of pandemic, I feel that while this is a humane government, in my view, they've taken good steps. But in terms of economy, in terms of revival of the economy, I would give them a 6 on a 10. I primarily feel that related to the pandemic. Look, it is not rocket science to know that the pandemic impacted certain industries more than others, right? And so when you come out of a pandemic, you have to focus on those specific industries. I didn't find anything in this budget for the travel industry. I mean, the only thing I saw was e-passports.
And there was a lot of hope from the travel industry in the days leading up to the budget that there will be something in it for them.
See, the only positives I saw was the concept of e-passports, which is a fantastic step, putting in this chip technology, having passport. That, of course, it will help in terms of getting visitors into the country and stuff like that. But at the same time, I feel that at a time when the travel is a big sector, I feel more could have happened. It is also true of the manufacturing sector. I genuinely believe that we are at the crossroads of history right now. In my mind, India can be the next China. China has taken a lead over us, a big, gigantic lead economically. Can we catch up? It will take us a long time to catch up. It's not easy. But can we take some steps at least to catch up? To start with, we need to have a focus on manufacturing.
Right.
We need to figure out how do we bring people, guys. If you want an Apple to start putting in place bases here on a stronger level than just having flings with India, then you need to give them something, right? Apple is just a name I'm just giving an example. You need to give them something special that they say, well, I have multiple choices. Why do I have to go to India? Is it the tax an advantage? Am I getting some subsidy? Because most countries today, when I sit here as an entrepreneur, I'm a global entrepreneur, and I get virtually in European countries, whether it's European countries or Chinese provinces, you get bombarded with people reaching out to you saying, this is why you need to be in my country. You will get customized messages from governors of states in the US giving you messages of why I want you in my state, right? They're trying to give you something special. And India needs to offer that something special to this mega MNC because that's where the money is, right? To tell them why we are better than China. We provide political stability, which China doesn't have, right?
Correct.
We today have the other advantage is on the regulatory front. After what has happened with the Jack Ma issues and so on, it has created a lot of negativity across the world with respect to China. There are also the issues with respect to China in terms of pandemic. The pandemic originated out of China. People haven't forgotten that, especially in the Western world. And that to me was an opportunity for India, and we must embrace that opportunity and recognize that and do something absolutely special to get manufacturing to come to India.
I was about to ask you that because my next question to you was going to be about the global semiconductor shortage and the opportunity that India has at this stage to take the lead, and all that's going out of China has the potential to come into India. And the government has taken many policy measures in that direction already. What are your thoughts on that subject? Do you think we're doing enough at this stage to sort of be the go-to place, if not for China, for semiconductors?
In my mind, no. In my mind, the steps are very positive. At the same time, it's not a question of relative steps with respect to where we were. We might get pleased that we've taken better steps from where we were. And of course, I said, as I started by saying, I give credit to Modi government for rationalizing many of these things. But we're not competing with ourselves. We're not competing BJP versus Congress. We are in competition with another economy, China. And we got to be better than them. That's how simple it is. We got to have a single track system. We got to do our tax rationalization has to be better. Our attraction to companies to come in terms of whether it is providing of land, whether it is providing of importing of equipment, we just have to read all their strategies of China and say, okay, we're going to take a short-term hit and we're going to do a better job and give them something over the first 5 years. Remember, the whole game in manufacturing is if you can attract people by showing them something in the next 5 years, you'll get opportunities to make more money out of them in future years. Let's first get that industry to move to India. And I'm not so sure that we have done enough as of now to convince a mega corporate. Now, we'll have some exceptions. People will come in. But then if you want, China didn't become China by having exceptions. They were the mass scale movement to China. And if we want to see mass scale movement, then we'll need to do something at a grandeur level.
Well, on that note, I'm afraid we have to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Robin Raina. And before we wrap this up, if I were to ask you, yes, you're talking about what India needs to do, but what is it that you think that will happen to India, given the current circumstances in the immediate future?
Look, I'm very bullish on India. I'm very bullish on India. I believe overall the country is headed in the right direction. Relative to where we were, let's say 7-8 years back, India is in a much better place today. Look, you don't hear of as many corruption scandals today in the newspapers or anywhere. That is a good start, for example. So full credit to Modi government to changing that agenda. I feel the focus on digitization is going to take India far. It's going to bring in a lot of international money into India. So I think we're headed in the right direction, but either we could get satisfied with that fact, or we could do something proactively to really fast forward and accelerate this growth path that we are on. And I'm one of those who'd like to see acceleration.
Fast forward and accelerate is the word from Mr. Robin Raina. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for speaking to EB9 Network. Wishing you all the very best in the upcoming new year.
Thank you.